we are going to be cleaning up this terrarium right here. And when I say cleaning up, there's just something that sort of gives you that I'm playing God feeling about taking a jar and stuffing a bunch of stuff in it and then sealing it up and just letting it all kind of naturally do what it's going to do. But the thing that you run into, the problem that you run into when you have the kind of seal it and forget it mentality when you're creating your terrariums is you end up with, you know, terrariums that look sort of like this, where it's really overgrown. You've got the grass kind of crawling up the sides and everything has this sort of, you know, it does have sort of like a natural kind of grown in, but there's also a lot of hidden beauty and there's also a lot of hidden details underneath all of this, you know, grassy stuff growing up the grass. Grassy stuff growing up the grass. Grassy stuff growing up the glass is what I meant to say. There's a lot of hidden details in there. For instance, we can't really see a lot of the, actually let me go back to here. So the whole like kind of scoop shape that this piece of wood in here has is all hidden by that grass and everything like that. And the other way that I think of terrariums is not the create it, seal it up, and let it do its thing mentality. It's more of the open it up whenever it gets a little bit overgrown like that and take little tools like our tweezers or our little rake perhaps. We probably won't use this. I think we'll definitely use our little scraper to kind of push some of that grass down into the cracks and the crevices down there. But overall, we're gonna break into the terrarium and we're going to clean things up. We're going to use our scissors here. We're gonna prune things, we're gonna primp things, we're gonna use our scissors, we're gonna clip things and trim things. We're gonna give this terrarium a nice little haircut and bring all of those beautiful details that we intentionally placed in there when we designed this thing. We're gonna bring all of those details back to life. Let me show you this mistake I made when I actually created this terrarium. I put this, oh, look at that plant is growing up to the top already, growing right over top of that. These are, I forget what the name of these vining plants are in here, but they were one of my favorite plants. I've got more, I think I've got more in this tub over here. Maybe they're not in there. In fact, these might be the last, these actually might be the last of these shingling plants that I actually have. But anyways, the mistake that I made was I put this piece of wood too close to the edge of the lip here, and it can barely, I have to kind of squeeze it in, you see? I can't even really push it down at this point. And one time I tried so hard to push it down that I chipped the glass on there. I think what we're gonna do first is basically just get in there with our scissors and we're gonna just start rough cutting. We'll get into here and we're just gonna chop as far down as we can reach, basically. This is actually the moss that I'm cutting. There's some Japanese sweetgrass in here. You can see it right there. Basically, I'm just trying to loosen up everything that's in here because the next step is we're going to get in and we're going to start just like pulling it out. But first of all, we got to disconnect it. And then the fun is also going to be watching this whole thing come back to life again. So one of the benefits of actually cleaning your terrariums out and trimming things up and primping and probbing and doing everything that you're doing, cleaning things out, is that you get to watch it sort of come back to life again, you know? I think we are going to use our little rake and see if we can pull some of this grassy stuff out of here. Here we go. Usually I'm a proponent of using your fingers and your hands and everything as much as possible, but when you're kind of digging in a jar with a lid like this, where you can't really get your fingers spread apart too much, it is nice to kind of use the tools so that you're not pulling too much or disturbing things too much. You obviously don't want to mess around too much with the roots and where everything's actually connecting. You just want to sort of get all of the growth that's sort of pushing its way upwards. We'll also use our tweezers here to kind of shove things back into place. That's the real secret. That's my real trick anyways, to kind of this detail work, is to get in here and not only remove, you know, sort of all the extra fluff, but then get in there afterwards and you want to really, you want to pay attention to kind of squishing everything back into the details and exposing, you know, the pieces in the wood that you want showing again. And if you just kind of like shove the plants back down into the cracks and the crevices, they'll do, you know, what plants do, and they'll continue to push their way back out, and we'll be doing this again in no time. Kind of forgot that I was actually holding it up here. I'm going to put it back on the table. My arm's getting a little sore. Plus I want to give you a nice up-close view again, because this is the fun part where we're getting down to the details. This is where everything sort of comes together. I always like this stage of a project when everything sort of comes together, you know, like the finishing work. Things that you do at the very end that, that sort of hide all of the last little mistakes that you still got showing or whatever it is. And they're the things that kind of are the most minute, and the things that you sort of have to sort of zone off and say things like have to sorta while you're doing them, because it's all really just about kind of getting into the moment and spending the time to push everything into the little cracks and the crevices. See how I'm doing that? Let's do a little bit more right down in here. Should we get it from a different angle? I find that in all creative projects, that's such an important step, is learning to just sort of stop and, you know, take a step back or zoom out. Because then when you come back, when you zoom back in and you get back to work, it's like you've kind of rinsed your brain a little bit. You can see things just a little bit more clear, in my experience, of course. Now let's push some of these plants right back in here. Got some of this Japanese sweetgrass sticking out in the back, and it was hidden. You didn't even know it was there before. But we'll let you shine your little light again, Japanese sweetgrass. Maybe we'll pull some of this moss out. It seems like we have a lot. I think we're going to clip the top of this shingling plant. It's starting to look a little bit stringy. See how there's not as many, you know, leaves in between the, I forget what the in-between part of the nodes is called, but there's not as many leaves in there. We're just going to give this a little clip, maybe right here. And just yank that out of there. We're taking a little scoop of nature and putting it somewhere in our life. We're injecting it somewhere into our lives, on a shelf or something like that, where we'll be able to let it catch our eye. When I'm walking around in nature, I notice that all the time. I'll just be stepping over the tiniest, the little most miniature plants, and I'll barely even notice them, except for once in a while when I'm looking down to step over a piece of a tree trunk or something like that, and I'll notice this little plant kind of, you know, just growing down in some crack or some crevice. And noticing those little details like that, it always reminds me why I love this stuff. It reminds me why I love to take those little scoops of nature and to create these little living pieces of art, and to just make sure that I'm surrounded by those sorts of things. I almost wonder if we should take this one out. I think I want to just kind of shove it into the back here a little bit more. Whoops. I guess it wanted to come out anyways. So, and then of course, again, the reason that I'm doing all of this is because I really wanted to bring the shape of this piece of wood that I kind of centered everything around in here. I really wanted to bring the shape of that out again. I still kind of regret, I feel like every time I see this terrarium, I feel like I made this base just way too big. I kind of wish I would have just gone down like a little, just another inch or so to kind of round it out. But you know, it's the flaws also that kind of make you appreciate things too. Or accepting the flaws that makes you appreciate things too. Anyways, let's do just a little bit more detail work by shoving things in. A couple more little random pokes, just so we can feel like we've really done it. That kind of felt like the end of the video right there, but maybe I'll record myself putting it back on the shelf too. Let's put this right back into place. Right by the door, so that when I'm walking by every once in a while, it can catch my eye. I'm trying to think of something profound to say at the end here. Preferably that rhymes with catch my eye, so that when I walk by, it can catch my eye, and I can remember to simplify is all I can say, but obviously that doesn't rhyme. Basically, just so I can so it can catch my eye, and I can recognize nothing. I should have ended this thing a long time ago. One more little tour just to show you the finished product. The idea isn't to change it too much. It's basically just to clean things up, to bring back out the original details, and just sort of get it to a state where we're going to be able to watch it do its thing again. Wow, that felt pretty good. I enjoyed doing that, and I'm glad I got that terrarium cleaned up, because I've been meaning to do that for a while now. Just because we cut all of this stuff out of our terrarium doesn't mean we can't just throw them back into another little bubble over there, and they'll continue to do their thing, and who knows what they'll create. I like to think of these as sort of my holding cells for the different plants. Which one should I use? I think this one. That's got some umbrella plants in it, umbrella tree plants. Oh, I want to show you this. I forget the name of this thing, but this is super cool. I've been waiting for like months and months for this to sprout. But the reason that I got this little tuber plant thing is because I saw like the finished product, that once this starts to sprout, you can sort of wind it around. I think the example that I saw in the listing had like a big wire, like a big loop going all the way around it, and it had the plant just sort of delicately, climbing around the loop, and it was a really pretty plant. So I'm excited to see that sprout. We'll get to watch that sort of grow on the channel, but maybe I'll who knows? From here, the plants can sort of fend for themselves. If they survive, then they survive, and who knows? We'll get to pull them out and use them in some other sort of new project. Mostly I just like adding the color back into the bins, and I like having just a bunch of random different things going on in all of these little worlds. And now we're finally done.